All right, everybody, welcome to the demo live stream of Legacy Horse Game in its pre-alpha state. We're really excited to have you guys all here. Before we get into the game itself, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Whitney. I'm the lead developer and co-artist on the game. And I'm going to let my partner introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Lydia. So I am the other developer of the game. I am in regular life a research scientist at a nonprofit biomedical research institute in the United States. But as far as in the game, I am behind designing the genetics and doing a lot of the math behind the scenes, and as well as some of the artwork.
Perfect. And we wanted to talk a little bit about where Legacy kind of originated from and the fact that we've known each other for about 11 years now. We met playing another horse game that's similar to what Legacy is like about, like I said, 11 years ago. And that game did not, it went defunct. It's no longer around. And so we decided, well, we missed playing it. So we decided, why don't we make our own game? But we wanted to take it to the next level. So the game is as realistic as we can make it. And that's particularly true in terms of the genetics. What is Legacy? In a one sentence, it's a genetics heavy stable management sim intended for a more mature audience. And it's meant to be played in small amounts. You do every day, jump on and do a little bit of management and do your breeding and set your horses up for shows and training and such. Your horses can breed. You can breed to compete. Horses can perform jobs to make money. And of course, there is, as we've talked about in the past, a ton of possible artwork combinations. So every horse should be fairly unique, especially when you get into white markings, patterns, and colors. There's a ton of different shades for each color. And the way that the artwork is combined, it's in the millions of potential artwork, the combinations that you could collect. There's breed specific in-hand shows that you can compete with, but overall there's 14 disciplines total, including the in-hand shows. The in-hand shows are for the 45 breeds, Lydia?
45 breeds, 10 crossbreeds.
10 crossbreeds in the game. So there's a breed specific show score system for every single one of those breeds for in-hand shows. And obviously in the game, you're going to earn money, titles, and trophies for your horses. Did I miss anything? Oh, and it's really important to point out that this game is intended to be cooperative, social, and competitive. So we met playing a game just like this, a little bit different, but the inspiration for this game. And I met many people playing that game and had an awesome time cooperating and working together while also, having some friendly competition between everyone. So that's the environment and the community that we are hoping to foster with the game. Did you have anything to add, Lydia?
Nope, sounds good.
All right, well then we'll just jump into the actual demo of the game and the various things that we're going to talk about. And the first thing that we are going to go over is how you would get started in the game. A few key points is you would normally start with $500,000 in the bank when you start the game, which seems like a lot, but it is only enough to cover, I don't see it in our notes anymore, but 5 horses for 19 in-gear games if you make 0 income for those first 19 years. So, which also seems like a lot, but when you consider that doesn't include, vet expenses in case your horses get injured, show entry fees, and stuff like that. So that 500,000 will go fast if you're not careful. You will start with 5 regular imports. There's 2 type of imports that you can do in the game, regular and custom. We'll get more into custom imports later in the stream. And we're just going to jump in and I'm going to show you how that works. So we'll go here to my demo ranch. And we're going to go ahead and do this import here. This is for the regular imports. And I'm gonna import some quarter horses. I'm partial to a good old quarter horse. So we'll go ahead and import. It shows that I have a lot more credits than you actually have. I'm just gonna go ahead and import 1 horse to get us started. And we're gonna go over to our horses and check out. Ooh, we got lucky. Not only did we get one, we got a Tovero, I believe that is. You may notice that the mane and tail aren't the correct color. Some of the artwork is not yet in the game. We are working on artwork still, but it will, most of it, if not all of it, will be in the game by the time we launch the alpha. So the first couple things that I want to just show you the overview of the horse. You have your performance abilities here. In 1 second. Oh, we've got some people that can't use the link for the Twitch stream. Oh, because I put an exclamation mark in it. The link is... Okay. Sorry, guys. Just had to make sure that everybody could join the stream. So anyways, back to what we were talking about. These are the performance traits. We've got 8. Sorry, I had to quickly count them. There's so many different numbers and things in the game, and it's so complicated that even we get lost in it sometimes, and we have to constantly be referencing our notes as we develop the game. So we've got a pretty smart boy here, and not the best jumper, but we'll go into how confirmation affects the performance traits and how body type affects confirmation. So we'll go into that in the future. We've got how many gaits here that the horse has. This horse is 3 gated. Horses can be 3, 4, or 5 gated, just like in real life. And we've got the personality here. So this is a pretty bomb-proof horse. Not very submissive, so bomb-proof, but a little bit of a stubborn boy. Moderately responsive, not very playful, and low energy. So I'm going to say this is probably a pretty laid back, chill, stubborn. Actually reminds me of my mare that I used to own. Although she had a little bit more desire to please than this boy does. He kind of doesn't care. The next thing here is the talents. So he doesn't currently have any talents, but there are 6 talents that horses could potentially have. Each talent gives horses a slight advantage in different disciplines. So for instance, just for one example, charisma would be useful in in-hand shows or dressage. Then if we scroll down here, we have all of the management aspects of the game or of the horse. So we can do different things, like we can register the horse's registered name. We can register their color here and their pattern. We can change their barn name. So some people like to have a fancy registered name, but then a more down to earth, so to speak, barn name. You can manage their feed, which will go in further detail later, their locations, which barn or pasture they're in. You can choose to sell, auction, or lease a horse, rehome, geld, put them up for public stud, choose a job, and then choose a background for them, which we'll again go into more detail later. You can also add notes to your horse, both public and private notes. So you can keep notes that you want to show, or notes that you are for yourself alone. Next thing we'll do is look at the confirmation. So we have Lydia. Do you remember how many confirmation traits total?
I don't remember exactly. It's over 30.
Over 30 confirmation traits, as well as some movement traits such as knee action, hock action, and stride. So all of these confirmation traits do affect the different performance traits, and we do break that down in our wiki on which confirmation traits. If we don't have it already, we will have it in our wiki. How many which confirmation traits affect which performance traits, so you'll know what to breed for. But as you can see, there's quite a few in here. And we'll go up and our training tab. So there's multiple ways to train a horse. We'll just go over it really quickly. You can hand train, or you can toggle it on for auto trainers to do it during rollover every day. There is a slight advantage to hand training in that it doesn't cost any money, but obviously it costs time. I will just point out that custom imports are pre-trained in ground, or not just custom imports, all import horses are pre-trained in groundwork and under saddle training as they import at 5 years old. So you can jump right into discipline training them. The next tab is the health tab, where we can go ahead and do some genetic tests here, which I'll just go ahead and do a couple quick genetic tests. So we hit the jackpot on white patterns with this horse, and it was not planned. This was completely random, but it has not only one, not two, but three white patterns. So that's why it is a, so it's got Tobiano, so it's a Tovero. And I swear that was not planned. We just got really lucky. And then there's some genetic illnesses that we'll go into more detail on, but you can also test for those. We got pretty lucky on this guy because he has no genetic illnesses. They're rare, especially in foundations, and you can only ever have heterozygous genetic illness. You never have an import that is homogeneous for it. And then this guy also carries the gated gene, which is pretty neat. The next tab here is the breeding tab, where we can collect semen from the studs or breed the mares. And it also has the horse's pedigree and their offspring if they have any. And finally, the events tab. It shows any trophies that your horse has. This one currently doesn't have any. Any ribbons and how many ribbons for each discipline, as well as any past shows that the horse has participated in, which again, this horse we just imported doesn't have any. So that is a quick and dirty overview of the horse and all the information and different things that you can manage or see on a horse's page. I'm going to just check with Lydia. Do you have anything that I missed or that we should add?
I just want to say, anybody, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in our chat stream. We'll monitor it at the end and answer your questions once we're done with the actual demo.
Yes, I forgot to say that. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the horses and the complexity behind the horses. So our horses have over 600 genes, which control pretty much everything on the horse. It controls their color, obviously. Personality traits are genetic. Performance abilities are genetic. The 30 plus conformation traits are genetic. Um, I'm trying to think. Illness proneness is genetic. So some horses have a higher chance of getting ill than other horses. Even injury proneness. Some horses are klutzier, or it's based on partially on conformation, but they can be more likely to have injuries. We don't have breed specific artwork. Just to touch on the artwork really fast, our 45 breeds are broken up into 9 body types, which I'll just show you a quick example. I'm just going to go to another ranch that I have and go to my horses there, and we can show you example of the 9 body types. So we have the warm blood here, the stock, light, draft, cob, baroque, saddle, mini, and pony. And these, so the 45 breeds are broken down into these 9 body types. The crossbreeds are not specific to specific body types because there's no, if for instance, a Morab, or not a Morab, because those would both be light, a Korab, so a quarter horse Arabian cross, could be either stock body type or light body type, or potentially other body types could come out of that combination, but it's most likely going to be one of those two. The reason we did the artwork this way and only chose body types rather than doing individual breed artwork is because the way we're doing the artwork, there are, and I'm not kidding, over 24 million different combinations of white markings patterns, modifiers such as sooty or panger, base colors, and I think that's everything. Base colors, and even mane and tail types for like Appaloosas can have different types of mane and tails. So yes, it's over. We stopped doing the math once we hit 24 million per body type. We were like, well, you know what? That's a pretty big number to begin with. It kind of shows you the amount and the individual possibilities for horses. Let me think. What else do we need? Yes. So instead of, and this also allows us to have more breeds and potentially add more breeds more easily in the future. It's important to note that color in the game is not limited by breed. So you can and will find unrealistic colors in any breed. For instance, you could import a gray Frisian. I don't believe Frisians carry the gray gene. So you will have to breed for or against different colors that you want in the breed. And we did that to allow players to have more freedom in what that they are breeding for. The one thing to note, however, is for in-hand shows, unrealistic colors will be docked points, or they will affect the score for in-hand shows. So for instance, for Frisians, just use them as an example again, you would want, I believe it's black or chestnut. Lydia might be able to.
Yeah, that's correct.
Blacker. Okay. So yeah, I'm doing a good job on remembering things today, which is surprising because again, the game is so complex and has so many moving parts. It's even difficult for us, which we did intentionally because we want to play the game. And so we will not have much of an advantage playing the game because it is so complex that
we literally have no idea.
Yeah. We forget things and we have to go back and look at our notes, and it's also been in development for coding for 2.5, 3 years, and design and such for 5 years total. So the next thing that we want to talk about is, and I'm just checking, and I don't see any questions or anything in the chat, but we are keeping an eye on that. And like I said, go ahead and throw your questions, or like Lydia said, go ahead and throw your questions in there, and we will hit them throughout, or most likely at the end of our demo. So with breeds, with showing and breeds, it's important to note that we are not limiting different disciplines to specific breeds. However, there will be breed specific shows for each breed, for each discipline, and some breeds will excel better at some disciplines than others. For instance, Dutch warmbloods are going to perform much better at jumping than a Falabella. That is where the breed specific shows are important. If you still want to breed an in-hand jumping mini horse, you will be able to just compete them in that breed specific show, and they will be competing against other horses at the same level or the same ability. The other thing I wanted to mention about that, it just left my head. What was it? Oh, miniature horses cannot compete in any ridden disciplines. So that is the one exception we made to the can they compete in any discipline, and the answer is no, they can't be trained in any undersaddle or compete in any undersaddle. Okay, so did you want to make any comments on that, Lydia?
I can go more into depth on why we did this body type artwork and how it affects different competitions and stuff like that if you want.
Sure.
Sure. All right. If you want to just like play around and show them the horses too while I'm talking, we can do that. So like Whitney said, we have 9 different body types in the game rather than breed specific artwork. And we've gotten a lot of questions in the past on Discord and Facebook and such, like, are our horses, like the different breeds, going to excel at things that they excel at in real life? Like, say, is a thoroughbred going to be much faster than, say, a Dutch warmblood or such? So the answer to that is yes, but that's kind of a question mark with a caveat. So our horses, when you import them, are what I like to think of more of like a slightly formed lump of clay compared to a real horse. So in real life, the breeds we have in existence today are highly refined. They've been bred for many, many generations to do usually one specific thing. Our horses in Legacy are not that way. They're just slightly pushed in one direction, and then we are giving you, the players, this lump of clay to allow you to take it whatever direction you want. I know Whitney's showing the saddle body type there. You'll notice some artwork is currently missing where the game's still in development, obviously, so we're still adding some things in. So if you see some abnormalities while we're playing, that's why. It's not going to stay that way. But anyway, back to the body type stuff. So your goal as the player is going to be to take this lump of clay and refine it in whatever direction you want. So you could set the goal that you want to take a fell pony like Whitney's showing here and make it as realistic as possible. You can do that. You can also breed for abnormal colors if you want. You could breed it to be a cutting horse, even though you probably have never seen a fell pony cut cows before. You can do almost anything you want in the game. And I say almost because there are some limitations in the game. So there are some traits that are limited by body type in the game. And that's what I mean by there's some limitations. So in real life, when I say think a horse is really refined to doing one specific task, that means genetically they are very limited in some things so that they perform better at, say, speed or jumping or whatever. In the game, we don't have that refinement. You can go whatever way you want, but we did limit some genes in the game to produce these specific body types. So what the body type that you see on these horses is genetic. If you stay a purebred, you're never going to have any abnormalities pop out there. But if you start crossbreeding, you can create all sorts of weird combinations and such. But there are, I think it's like 60, 64 genes that we did limit. These are height, muscle mass, whether or not they have a cresty neck, back length, neck length, bone density, and their top line being uphill or more downhill. Those things are limited across each body type, and those things produce the different body types that you see in the game. And being that those things are limited, in particular height and muscle mass, those things are big drivers of what your horses can or can't do in the game. So, for example, a light body type has lighter muscle mass. Light muscle mass is great for stamina. So if you want to breed an endurance horse, picking a breed with a light body type is going to be what you want. If you want a racehorse, you're actually going to want some moderate muscling. So not a lot, not too little. So you're going to pick, there's lots of body types that have moderate muscling. And then if you want to breed a horse to pull things, you're going to want a breed with the draft body type or the cob body type, which have heavy muscling. But there's also some negatives to doing these different things. So breeding for moderate or heavy muscle mass decreases stamina. Breeding for heavy muscle mass will decrease your horse's speed and jumping ability because it's going to weigh the horse down. There's things like that in the game that will make it harder for certain breeds to excel in certain disciplines. But like we said, we have breed-specific shows, so you could still compete within breed if you want, but you're probably not going to do as well with certain breeds in like the top level open shows. So why did we do this? Well, we mentioned earlier that we've got so much color artwork that it just having breed-specific artwork made things really complicated. But we also wanted to encourage crossbreeding in the game. So a lot of games don't encourage crossbreeding. Because we're all about the genetics, think that crossbreeding is fun. But being as we have 30 conformation traits and everything, implementing crossbreeding can get really complicated really fast. So we bend all our all our artwork into the 9 body types to make crossbreeding possible. Obviously, it's not super realistic because the artwork doesn't show, like if you breed for leg length, the artwork is not going to show a horse with longer legs versus short legs. It's all just 9 different types. But having these different types allowed us to do this kind of fun system to play around with. And ideally in the future, someday we'd have artwork that could actually like reflect these different conformation changes you see. So kind of warp the horse to fit having a more curvy neck or not. That's really complicated to do. This is our first game together, so it's unlikely to happen anytime soon, but that would be a dream of ours. But that's kind of the basics of why we have these body types. So yeah, I think that's everything. Anything else about that, Whitney?
The one thing I would say is feathering is also body type related. Certain body types are not going to have feathering show up in foundation horses as well. Okay, well, let us talk about the next thing. Finances. So I think next thing on our list is finances. So as we said, you start with $500,000, and that will cover 5 horses for 19 in-game years with 0 income and 0 additional expenses. So that covers things such as feed, barn upkeep or pasture upkeep per horse, feed. And the feed, there are different types of feed that cost different amounts, so we just averaged the feed in that. Shoeing or farrier costs, vaccinations, which are a thing in the game as well. Let me see if I can go and just show you some of the transactions. There should be a lot in this. Oh no, there's not. So, for instance, I had 4 horses on this ranch on September of year 41. And those 4 horses cost me $50 a piece to uh, shoe, or I like to personally think of it as a natural hoof trim, just because that's what I like and did in real life. So that's why we just said farrier. But if you want to think of it as them getting shoes, you can as well. Vaccinations time 4. So I think they're 150 a piece for vaccinations. And vaccinations are once a year. Farrier is once a month. Barn upkeep is the barn. Each barn has a monthly upkeep. So it's not per horse, it's per barn. And feed is they're on all of these sources are on the basic feed, so it's 100 each. And you can see when we moved up to 9 horses, it was 900. And I'm not sure why the dates are the same. We're still working out a few bugs in the game, so you might see a couple bugs, but know that we are well on our way to having those worked out. So how do you earn money? There is, well, one thing I should mention too, there's only one type of currency in the game. It's just based off of the American dollar, but it's a fictional money amount. And you cannot purchase money with real life money. So it's really important that you manage your money well in the game. Another thing I will mention is the starting amount or the prices of things may change post alpha depending on how the economy works out. Once we have a lot of people playing, we need to see if people, because we did the math based on averages and stuff like that on how many horses you could support, and we're trying to make it so we give you enough leadway to be able to get income established and running. Speaking of income, how do you make money? Well, you can make money a couple of different ways. You can sell horses, you can lease horses out to other places, well, kind of other ranches. You can sell semen or stud services. You can put your horse in shows, and horses can be given jobs. So let's go ahead and look at a couple horses and see if any of them qualify for jobs. So jobs, important thing to note, are based off of a horse's personality on what jobs they can perform, and a little bit based off of I believe carriage is based off their something. Was carriage pulling also based off strength, Lydia?
I'm not sure if they just had to be trained to ground
No, it's
drive,
just
maybe.
training. Yep, training. You're right. I knew it was something else, but again, guys, the game is so complex that we sometimes get things mixed up and we have to double check our notes constantly. But so this horse, I'm guessing based on their personality, has a few jobs, and it has at least one, so it could be a trail horse. There are 6 or 7 potential job options, including lesson horse, trail horse, carriage horse, pony horse, which is for like race horsing. They pony the racehorse. And trail, I think I said trail horse, and a couple others. Certain breeds can't do, well, pretty much minis can't do anything that requires riding, but everything else. They have to be completely trained in the necessary training. So let's look at this horse as well and see if they have any other jobs. So they can be a ranch horse. That's one I missed. Or a trail horse. Different jobs also pay different amounts. So the more complicated the job, or the more strict personality requirements, the higher the pay. So for instance, I believe a pony horse makes more than a trail horse. So most foundation horses should be able to do at least one job. But it is based off personality. So if you want to just breed for color and you don't want to compete, you could also breed personality that would fit jobs. So we've got this Clydesdale who doesn't currently have a job that would work for him. So his personality just doesn't fit any of the jobs options. But that's jobs broken down. Shows are what you would expect. You pay an entry fee, and if you place in the top 3, you receive a purse from it. Which brings us back to, or brings us around to talk about competitions. I'm just going to take a quick drink. 1 second, guys. All this talking is making my throat dry. Okay, so as we said already, foundation horses come saddle broken. They're ready to show in hand, or basic dressage only needs the saddle done. Or I said in hand. If you want to compete in higher level dressage or any other disciplines, they will have to go through discipline training, which I can show you right now. So for instance, let's just take a look at this guy. So pretty strong, okay sure-footedness, okay intelligence. Everything else is a little meh, but he's got the strength. So I would probably put this guy in polling. He's a draft horse that's kind of a no-brainer. So I could go down to, this horse is not a custom import or a import. This horse is a foal that I bred earlier today to be able to show off the artwork, this specific artwork. So he cannot be trained in anything except for groundwork. And he cannot be trained in tack or ground drive until he's 2 years old. So that's something to be aware of, is that you cannot train or exercise a foal besides groundwork, until they are over exactly 2 years old or over. So let's go to a different horse. So we'll go back to this Arabian, and I'm going to say, this is pretty smart. Not the best competitive, but has an okay stamina and okay speed, balance and agility. This could actually go in a lot of different directions because it's pretty even on most of their stats. Obviously, he's not going to be going in pulling. I'm going to just say it's an Arabian. Let's throw it in endurance. So we're going to go to the training. We're going to go down to endurance. And when you're manually training, it's not very complex. We may change the training system in the future to be a little bit more engaging, but for now, it's just clicking a button. So we're just going to train, and training has to happen in a specific order. So I can't train walk trot medium distances until I've trained walk trot short distances.
And you don't have to click either too. If you don't like it, we have auto trainers as well. That's what that little toggle is next to endurance. Yes. So the game will automatically, every time rollover hits, train your horse for you.
And training doesn't seem to be cooperating today, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it doesn't seem to want to work. So that's something we will be investigating. But yeah, it's just a matter of clicking and your bar will go up. Like Lydia said, you can also put them on an auto trainer. But yeah, we'll check into why that's not working. I've been tweaking things and probably broke something and just need to go in and do a quick fix. So not a big deal. We will have most of the bugs worked out by alpha. Obviously, part of the purpose of alpha is for finding bugs, but our goal is to be as polished of a game by that point as possible. So once a horse is trained, then you can go ahead and put them in a show. Like I said, you you can come in here and we can pick a discipline. So if we were to put it in endurance, we can go ahead and filter by endurance. That would be a first level horse. Horses have to hit certain scores to compete at higher levels. So you're going to have to always show a horse in their first level first. Another thing to note out, you don't necessarily have to have a horse fully trained or fully conditioned to compete in a beginner show. The shows do have NPCs that compete. So the reason we did that is because we wouldn't want people to be able to just throw horses into empty shows and never have any competition if nobody's playing with the same breed that they're playing with. It's still a little bit of a challenge. And you don't just win by de facto. But the NPC scores are limited to certain levels for each level to about where you want your horse to be. So I could, especially for instance, dressage, I could compete a dressage horse very early. You just kind of have to figure out that sweet spot of when to compete them in the show, so that you can start earning income from the horse and earlier on while they're still in training. So we would go ahead and choose a breed. So we're going to go and choose an Arabian. And we could choose a specific time, or we can just select a show, and we could enter this horse in the show. This horse doesn't have any training, so it's not going to... If a horse has 0 training in the discipline, they will scratch. So they will not have any. You know why I bet you nothing's working? I probably have to relog. Okay, so let's go back. And I bet you it does auto log you out after 3 hours, but it doesn't always refresh automatically. So that's just a security feature. Yep, that's what it was. So now I can train the horse. So not a bug, a feature, just one that catches us off guard more often than not. So
and we'll hopefully refine that soon.
Yeah, well, we'll do it so you get an alert or something like that. So it's a little, but most people are not going to play for 3 hours straight. It's just not. It's not a game that you really have 3 hours worth. I mean, depending on how many ranches and horses you decide to have, you could fill up the time. But yeah, if we go back to doing endurance, first level, Arabian, and we'll go back into the show and we'll enter, and there we go. Oh, that's a little bit of a bug. That's supposed to be over there. But again, little things that we're catching and tweaking and fixing between now and when we launch the alpha. So that's how you enter a horse in a show. Important thing to note on confirmation shows or in-hand shows, they're based on real life standards. So it may take some breeding because, like Lydia mentioned, the foundation horses are like a lump of clay. They need a little bit of shaping. They may not fit their breed standard as well as they should. And I can just... Let me go over one of the in-hand shows. Trying to find it on our wiki. Oh, there it is. So, for instance, an Arabian, just to go over.
Oh, you're not showing it to us, Whitney.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it down. Okay. I just had to get it up to the right page. So an Arabian would, and we'll link this, we've linked this wiki in our Discord, which I'll remind you guys, if you aren't in our Discord, I highly recommend joining it because you have to be a member of the Discord to participate in the alpha. And we give a lot of sneak peeks and information in the Discord. We'll remind you guys throughout the stream on that. So Arabians, they have a height requirement. Their head should be somewhat small, but noticeably dished with large nostrils. So our Arabian, let's just take a quick look at him and go to the confirmation. And his head profile is straight, not dished. So he's not going to score as well on that aspect of the in-hand show. Head size is ideal, but you don't necessarily always want ideal. Ideal is for the middle ground of everything. So in this case, we'd actually want it to be a little bit smaller than ideal. And back should be short with normal curvature and a short loin. So we're going to go ahead and look at our back. Back curve is ideal. So that's probably good. Back length is way too long for this horse for this show. So you're going to have to breed. In-hand shows are going to be the most difficult discipline in the game. They just, in my opinion, because you really have to work hard to get your confirmation traits as close to perfect as possible, just like in real life. Again, we want this game to be as realistic as possible, and as it's going to be challenging because of the realism. But that's just a quick example. I will post the wiki in the Discord at some point in time once we get it a little more filled out. We only have about 3 breeds in there right now. But anything else that we should add to that, Lydia?
Why don't you show them what the discipline shows look for, just to compare?
Yes. Okay. So, for instance, in discipline in barrel racing, there's key traits, minor or major traits, and minor traits that affect each show discipline. Key traits are going to have the biggest impact on your show score. And then major traits obviously are going to be the next, and the minor traits are going to have the least amount, but still have some significance. So for instance, for barrel racing, speed is obviously the most important trait. Agility and surefootedness are also important, but not quite to the same extent as speed. And then intelligence, desire to please, responsiveness, and judgment are all minor traits. It's important to note desire and to please and responsiveness are both personality traits. So a horse's personality does affect their show score. Different personality traits affect different disciplines, which we break down through the wiki. And judgment is actually a talent that gives them a little bit of an edge. So judgment affects jumping and barrel racing. To kind of explain them, which let's go back to this horse. So charisma is kind of like that je ne sais quoi that horse would have, like just that extra something special that they just have this presence about them. Cow sense, pretty obvious and straightforward. It's the horse's natural ability to judge a cow and how the cow moves, which affects cutting. Determination. Ooh, I get determination and steady mixed up all the time, but I believe determination is that ability to just push through and go that extra little bit in endurance races. Is that correct?
That's actually pulling.
In pulling, steady is the one that works on endurance. I always get them mixed up. Or no, grit is
speed.
Okay, yes. Grit is that ability to push that extra bit of speed out of a horse. Just that extra think of it like when a horse is going head to head, they're able to just give that extra little oomph in the race. Judgment is the ability to judge distances and jumps, or judge themselves on jumps, or barrel races, or barrels. Judge the pocket in a barrel. And then steady is the endurance, that ability to, I don't know quite how to describe
Stay calm and cool and conserve their energy.
That exactly. Thank you. Um, okay, so that goes over confirmation and other disciplines and kind of what impacts those. The next thing we're going to talk about, yeah, we already talked about jobs. Um, talked about training. We do have 13 disciplines in total. I'm not going to list them all. I will be posting a link to the wiki in the Discord, so you guys can go through and check them out there. We have all of the disciplines on here, but not all of the in-hand breeds are in there yet. But there is a list of breeds, so you can go through and see which breeds are in each body type. It also has the image of the body type, so you can check out that as well, even though we've already shown it on here. We'll just get that out of the way. Okay, so shows, I briefly touched on the tiering system on shows. They, so a horse hits a certain score, it cannot be entered into lower level scores anymore, or shows anymore. It needs to be entered into a higher tier show, and vice versa. If a horse hasn't hit a certain score, it cannot be entered into the higher tier shows. They won't show up on the entry list. This is just to help give newer players a chance to build up and compete and make money at a lower level, and they don't have to compete with, we don't have people putting, highest tier show or horses in the lower tier shows just to farm money. That's part of the reason we included jobs in the game, is to allow people to make money outside of shows. But also we were just trying to balance the fairness of the game for new players versus seasoned longtime players. And if that needs to have tweaking, we will be looking at that throughout the alpha. We also have special championship. Well, we have 3 types of shows. Special shows. We have three or 4. So we have, I'm trying to remember them all off the top of my head. I'm just pulling up the document that we have really fast. I'm not going to be able to find it quick enough. I should have had it pulled up, but I did not think of it. Oh, I think I found it. Okay, so we have age-specific championships. We have just a yearly special championship, or a yearly championship, and then we have the special championships. So the special championships are things like the Dressage Grand Prix, and the equivalent of that for the other disciplines. So we came up with some fun names like Kicking It Old School for reining, Grand Slam for cross country, the Legacy Stampede for barrel racing and cutting. There's 2 separate shows, one for each, but they're just called the same thing. Going Hollywood for saddle seat and gated pleasure. Just fun little names that we came up with so that they had a little bit more, they were just a little more fun. And then we have some age specific championships, and these all happen once a year. So for instance, Going Hollywood always will happen yearly in April, and so we have 4 tiers of shows. We have first tier, second tier, third tier, fourth tier. Those are the regular shows that will happen every day, twice a day, one in the AM, one in the PM. And then we have these special championships, and they're considered tier 5 shows. And you will have to have the top cream of the crop horse to compete against the NPCs in that show, because and there's also a limit on how many horses can enter that show. So you have to hit the requirement, the show score requirement to enter the show, and there will be very difficult NPCs to go up against. So and I'll show you on the events. Oh, I don't have any trophies, but that's where the trophies would show up. And let me see if I can bring up the artwork for the trophies. I don't think I'm going to be able to bring it up quickly enough. We'll just give it 1 second. Do you want to add anything while I look, Lydia?
Sure. I can just tell them a bit about the time system. So
Okay.
Whitney mentioned like a specific show only happens in April. We should mention there's a time system in the game, and she means April in the game, not actually April in real life. So the game has months that are named after real life months. The time system works that 1 real day equals 1 game month. So 1 game year happens cycles through every 12 real days. So shows run twice a real day in the morning and PM. And yeah, that affects, when you can enter shows and how often you can train your horse. You can train your horse twice a real day. And it also affects, you breed mares, they gestate in game just kind of like they do in real life, where it's about 11 months. So 11 real days, foals will be born after breeding, things like that.
Yes. Okay, so I just want to show off some of the trophies. Not that big of a deal, but we have a Breeders' Cup. So, of course, that's not going to work. There we go. So we have the Breeders' Cup trophy. We have the Futurities trophy. And these will show up right here on your horse's page. And then we have the different discipline championships. So we have the old school here, the Grand Slam. They're going to look the same. They just have the different names on them. So those are the 3 different types of shows and the 3 trophies. Futurities are limited by age. The yearly championships. Oh, and we have the veteran show, which is for older horses. And then we have the World Cups. So we have more than 3. I forgot. I did these quite a while ago. So anyways, that's what we'll show there. Let me go back to try to think is there anything else we need to go over on championships. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is other management stuff in the game. So little details such as, let's go ahead and start with this horse. All horses have a condition and a status. So status is going to be something like healthy, ill or injured, pregnant, or deceased. Whereas condition is how thin or fat they are. So this horse is moderately thin. It is an Arabian, so it's probably fine. But if you wanted to get it to ideal, which is kind of the middle ground, you're going to need to manage their feed. It's important to note that different activities that a horse does every month or real life day are going to impact their condition. So showing a horse, training a horse, or having a horse in a job will all lower a horse's condition. So you have to balance that with the feed that they're on, and different feed will raise the horse's condition. The goal is to hit them at about moderately thin, ideal to moderately fat, but ideal is kind of where you want to have them at. And the way we do that is with the feed. There's 4 different types of feed. Balancer feed is for horses that are overweight, and it's going to reduce their condition. Basic is the basic feed. It neither reduces nor increases the condition. Conditioning increases it a little bit, and concentrated increases it quite a bit. One thing I forgot to mention is pregnant horses will also lose condition, and they will lose condition more quickly than, for instance, just showing a horse or just training a horse. Condition effects do stack. So a horse that is showing and in a job is going to lose more condition than a horse that is just showing. So for instance, this horse, I might put them on concentrated feed for a couple months until they gain enough weight. And then if they're in training, I might pull it back to conditioning feed. If they were pregnant, if it were a mare, I would want to leave them on the concentrated feed. It's kind of mare feed. So you just have to kind of balance that out and keep an eye on your horse's condition until it gets to the point that you want it at, and go from there and adjust the feed to be. So if this horse was never going to be trained, I could just put it on conditioning feed for a little bit. And then once it hit ideal, put it back on basic feed. Each feed does cost a different amount. Balancer is the most expensive. Basic is, I think, 100. And then conditioning concentrated are a little more expensive than the basic feed. Pasture location is very important. Pasture or barn location is very important to consider as well. Each pasture and barn has a limit to how many horses. Pastures can hold 20 horses, barns can hold 10. There is a price per pasture per year and a price per barn per month. And the big thing to know is mixing stallions with other horses can have undesirable consequences. If you have more than one stallion in a field, in a pasture, they will fight and injuries will happen. It's the chance of injury is extremely high when you have more than one horse. And it's not just the stallions that could get injured. It's any horse that's in that pasture with the stallions could get injured. And we've done many testings where we've just imported a bunch of horses into a pasture and left them just because we were testing an import thing, and come back and have a million notifications that they're injured and also pregnant. Because if you leave a stallion in a pasture with mares, mares do have a chance of getting impregnated by the stallion. So you may have unwanted pregnancies happen, just like in real life. You may have stallions fighting with injuries, just like in real life. So anything else on pasture or barn management that I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's the big stuff.
Okay. So selling, auctioning, leasing a horse, all pretty straightforward. You can rehome horses. How much money you get back for the horse will depend on what job a horse will receive when it's rehomed. They can be rehomed at different locations. So like they could be rehomed as a therapy horse or a lesson horse or just to a regular home. And how much money you receive for the horse is based off that, which is based off of their personality.
And rehoming is a way to remove them from the game.
Yes. Once a horse is rehomed, they're removed from the game. In a sense, they are no longer an active horse, but they will still have an active page. You can still come and visit their page, see their events, their offspring, etc., etc. So it does remove them from the regular playing pool, but they will still be visible in the game. You can geld a horse. So obviously you can put a gelding in a pasture and not have to worry about it. Put it up for public stud. We already talked about jobs. I'm going to talk about the backgrounds here in just a little bit. What else? We already talked about the time frame and pastures. So actually, I think we are going to talk about backgrounds here. Legacy is free to play. The base game is free to play, but there are certain things that could cost money if you choose to purchase them. So the first thing that you should know is you get, in a free account, you get one ranch that starts with 5 import credits, and every, I believe it's 10 in-game years, you get an additional 3 import credits, regular import credits, so that you can get fresh blood. We're trying to make it as fair to free players as possible and not pay to win. If you want additional ranches, they will be available for subscription. I believe the price is $10 a month, but I'm not sure off the top of my head on that. I would have to look it up, and that may change. So all of these pricing is subject to change between now and the alpha. These things will be purchasable during the alpha as well. That's important to know. The other thing you can purchase is custom import credits. So let's just show that off really fast. We're going to go to the ranch, and I'm going to import custom import credits. The only thing you can customize is the color, and you can choose a pattern or modifier.
As well as the sex, the gender,
as well as the sex,
the horse, right?
Yes. So I'm going to choose a breed. I'm going to go ahead and import. I'm going to import an Appaloosa. I'm going to put it in studs. I'm going to just stallion's fine. I'm going to make it. Let's do bay. Let's do a buckskin. So I can choose 2 dilutions. So I could do a buckskin. Let's do a buckskin champagne. And I'm going to not put a modifier, but I am going to make it a leopard. And I'm going to just import this really quickly. And if I go to my horses, I should have. And the leopard pattern did not import. Like I said, all of the artwork is not necessarily in the game yet. Still a beautiful horse though. So that is all. Custom imports can still have illnesses. This one doesn't. This did, and you can see that it did get the genes for leopard. It just, the artwork isn't live currently. And it has the cream and champagne that I chose. So the other thing that you can purchase is, let's go back to my horses. I think it's on the Arabian. Yes, you can purchase custom backgrounds for your horses. So for instance, I could choose this barn road, change it. You do have to refresh the page once you change the image. And there's my horse on this pretty barn road. We will note all of our custom backgrounds, except for the default background, are stock photos that we've edited. We do have the licenses for the stock photos. It's just the best way to create it to match our artwork style with the horses that we have. And I can show you a few. Let me show you a few of them. So just for some examples, we have a couple fields that you can choose. A desert, this really pretty forest. There's a beach. My all-time favorite is this red barn. I love this one. It's my absolute favorite. The autumn one is my probably second favorite. So that's just a couple examples. These will always be in the game. So if you purchase them, they will always be accessible to you on that horse that you purchased them for. I guess that's a good thing to note. You purchase the horse's specific background. Let me just show you. So you purchase background credits, and then with those background credits, you will purchase let's go with the autumn one. And I'm going to choose Stallion 2, and I'm going to add it. And once it's added, and I can go back to my horses, I can go to Stallion 2, and I can then change it. And if I want to change it back to the default, once it's refreshed, I could change it back to the default. He looks good on that. So the other thing that you will be able to purchase is custom mane and tails. So I'm just going to show off a couple of those. So we'll have a short mane and tail here. Let me zoom in on this one since it's a mini. So we have this short, and these are all grayscale. They're not necessarily colored words, and they're all works in progress. These could change a little bit. We have the I guess this one's not grayscale, but I can turn the grayscale one on. We have the default long front mane and tail. We are working on, there's a couple versions of this that I'm working on, but the braided mane and tail, the tail is not complete. And then we have the default back one. Oh, and there was one more, and it was the pulled. Let's hide that. The pulled one. So again, we're still working on these, but you'll be able to purchase them. It may not, the mane and tail may not be available in immediately in alpha, but they will be hopefully by then. It just depends on, we don't want that to hold up the alpha launch if that's the only thing that's left to do and it's late on our list. What else? Oh, and the last thing that we may add in the future is custom tack. I don't want to promise it. It's definitely not going to be in the alpha. But our goal is to add it at some point in time. It's just a matter of finding a way to do it that fits the aesthetic of the horse itself. Couple things that we want to touch on before we open it up for questions. The genetics of the game are more realistic than any other game that we know of. We have things such as linked inheritance, which Lydia could probably go over. I don't know of any other game that claims to have linked inheritance or has it. I don't want to say claims because if they claim it, they probably do have it. I could be wrong on that, but we decided to make this game because that's what we wanted, was the most realistic genetic system out there. And so that's what we have put our challenge to ourselves to design, and I feel like we hit that challenge. It's going to be educational as well as fun. There's a lot that you'll want to learn about genetics. Hopefully you'll want to learn about genetics because of the game. What else would you like to talk about as far as genetics, Lydia?
I don't know. I mean, not too much. The reason why we've designed the genetics so hard is, well, I mean, one, I am a geneticist, so if I've played a lot of games that have genetics in them, and I'm always bored by the fact that it's literally just color genetics usually. And if it's not, if they go beyond that, the genetics are just so simplistic. I figured the game out in like a few days. So this game has, like we said, over 600 genes for the horses. We have examples of like linked inheritance and recombination will happen, epistasis in the game, sexual dimorphism, so genes that affect males and females differently. We have inbreeding actually has a realistic effect where it's about homozygosity of recessive alleles rather than coy, as a lot of games use. So there's a lot in here. I will be on the game and always available to answer questions in the forum and teach you guys all that I can about genetics. So yeah, that's one big component of it.
Perfect. Another thing to go over is a couple things I missed. So starting stats, you'll notice that the gray bar here, besides jumping, is not at the bottom for everything. Horses have genetics. Like we said, we have genetics covering everything in the horses. Just like foals are going to be born with or develop a certain amount of abilities as they age without training, our horses, instead of simulating that growth over time, we just decided to give them a starting value, which is genetic. So this horse's balance is starting at a certain percentage of their max. Jumping is the only one that we did not do that with, for just to be a little bit more realistic. Um, but speed and the percentage of the max is based off of a series of genes in the game. You will train, obviously, just like most other games. As you train and exercise the horse, their stats will increase. We tried to balance that so that a horse, as they train and by the time they hit their peak, which is important to note as well, horse stats have a peak age and they will start to decline after that peak age. Um, but we tried to design it so that the horse's stats would max out pre-peak age, and you would have a few years or however long the range is, before the stats start to decline. You could also put a horse on a trainer or an exerciser to slow down that decline, but they will age out of their stats at some point. You already talked about inbreeding. We already talked about conformation being more injury prone. Seasons. So it's really important to talk about seasons. We have the regular 4 seasons: fall, summer, winter, spring. We also have breeding and off season. And a horse's fertility is higher during the breeding season, so you're more likely to be get a mare pregnant during the breeding season. And a stallion can be collected semen more frequently during breeding season. And during the off season, it's a little bit tougher. I don't remember exactly what the seasons are. They don't line up specifically with summer, spring equals breeding.
I believe it's May through September is breeding season.
Okay. And you can see right here, there's a little heart that indicates that it is breeding season. So you won't have to remember off the top of your head. It'll always show you. And then I think that's everything that we have to go over. It's been a lot of information that we've thrown at you guys. Thank you for everyone that's stuck around through all of it. Now we're going to open it up to more questions. So if anybody has anything, go ahead and throw it in the chat now. And we will answer whatever you have.
And stick around even if you don't have questions. We've got an announcement we still want to make.
Let's go ahead and make that announcement now while people start throwing questions in the chat. So let me just go, and we are actually going to show you via the game this announcement. And that announcement includes these 2 horses. And I just want everybody to notice what this horse has that we said that we weren't going to get in the game in time, or if at all. And throw it in the chat. Do you notice something about this horse and this horse? We'll give you guys a second to throw it in the chat. And if not, I'll just announce it. I think it is a Mustang dragon, but Mustangs have a potential feature for lack of a word, trait to them that this horse has, and this horse also has. We'll give it one more second. Okay, so I'm just going to announce it. If you notice here at the feet, they have feathering. And we weren't able to get both levels of feathering in the game before the live stream today, because we just started working on the artwork this week and just implemented it into the game. It's why some of the artwork is missing in the game. But yeah, you did try, Dragon. You tried well. But the feathering is going to have 2 levels. So we're going to have this full feathering here, the heavy feathering that both of these horses have. And we also have a lighter feathering that's more common in this Mustang should probably have the lighter feathering. Another thing to note is the feathering that is in the game. We've always had feathering in the game. We just didn't have the 2 levels and we didn't have the artwork to go with it. So the artwork is the big woohoo surprise. And the 2 levels so like stock horses will only have a chance to in foundation horses will only have a chance to get light feathering. So if you want heavy feathering on a stock horse, you would have to crossbreed for it. But we did some tweaking of the genes in the background to produce these horses for you guys to show off we're excited about it. It's a lot more work for us. We're not as excited about that part, but we're very excited to be able to bring this to you guys. So, all right. I don't see any questions yet. Anything else we should touch on while we wait?
We can talk about the alpha.
Yes, let's go ahead and do that while people throw their questions in the chat, hopefully. Our goal is to release the alpha sometime in August of this year. I think it's fairly doable. There is a chance that the alpha will be missing some artwork, but we are very, very close to having the coded part of the game and the bug fixes and all of that done for the alpha. Anything else I should add about the alpha?
Join our Discord to get access to it. That's all we're basically doing is you just need to be on Discord. We'll announce it to our Discord followers when it's available, and you guys will get the first chance to play it for free.
Yep. The only thing I will say is you will only get the 1 ranch, just like in the regular launch, the full launch. And we've discussed alternative ways to fund the alpha, but we decided that we would want to do a way that you guys get something in return. And so that's why the store will be fully functional for the alpha. So I don't see any more questions. We will post the VOD of this on our YouTube channel soon. It might take us a couple days, but other than that, I think we're good to wrap up if nobody has any questions. All right. Well, yes, Thorgal, I'm glad you made it to the wrap up too. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will do more of these in the future, more Q&As between now and the alpha. Other than that, I don't have anything. Do you have anything else, Lydia?
Nope, I think we've covered it all.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining us, and we will see you in the next live stream.